Throughout our course, we have used sociological context to hone in on broader questions of racial formation and identity. In doing so, it allows us to understand and contextualize contemporary issues in the structure and development in our society. As C. Wright Mills states in The Sociological Imagination, yet people do not usually define the troubles they endure in terms of historical change and institutional contradiction. The well-being they enjoy, they do not simply impute to the big ups and downs of the societies in which they live, seldom aware of the intricate connection between the patterns of their own lives and the course of world history. To expand on this study, I aim to examine a topic that has challenged me in forming my own identity as Latino in the United States and the large Caucasian population that surrounds me in Los Angeles. Immigration. As a second-generation Latino with deep family roots in Mexico, I recognize white privilege and assimilation due to the extremely segregated demographics that surround me. To prove this, I will examine the Canadian border. The border celebrated throughout history is the world's longest undefended border. This border, however, starkly contrasts with that of our neighbors to the south, the Mexican border. This border is defined through a tough set of rules, a high barbed wire fence, and 1,200 national groups surrounding it. Mexico is seen as exporting its crime and poverty, rapists and drug dealers up north, as the undocumented take jobs from Americans and drain treasury with their use of social services. I aim to bring to light more depth to the Latino experience in the U.S. by juxtaposing it with the Canadian border experience. To do so, I will conduct 2 interviews, one with my friend's great uncle who immigrated from Canada and the other with my grandmother who immigrated from Mexico. I aim to prove, in the words of Brown and Duguid in their essay, Borderline Issues, Social and Material Aspects of Design, rather the border is a mechanism of inclusion and exclusion, central to the social practices and biases in our society. The border is an identity marker, separating what constitutes foreignness from Americanness. When discussing an immigration and integration story, one must consider the racial hierarchy in the U.S. For starters, the issue of race among Mexican Americans is a misconceived notion in many ways. Outsiders tend not to see Mexicans as white or black, rather they are viewed through the stereotypic lens of being non-white or brown, and most importantly, as an immigrant. On the other hand, many other immigrants ranging from Canadian, European, and even Russian descent migrated to the U.S. only to be viewed as the acceptable race, the white race. Through this example of racism in the U.S., many white immigrants found themselves at the height of the racial hierarchy, while many Latinos and other people of color found themselves below. As history shows, being at the bottom of the racial hierarchy can only bring detrimental outcomes. My grandmother migrated to the U.S. at the age of 14 in 1974. Like most people from her city, my grandmother dreamed of a finer life in the U.S., one filled with prosperity and opportunity, opposed to the poor and healthy dynamic that flooded her and her family at home. When asked of life in Mérida, Yucatan, Mexico, my grandmother has nothing but stories full of sadness and strife. Her mother not being able to put food on the table, her father becoming abusive towards the family, and being subjected to the constant seniority in her family, thus leading to more abusiveness. After becoming fed up with these issues, my grandmother got on an 80-hour bus trip from her hometown to the town of Tijuana, where she would attempt her first crossing of the U.S.-Mexican border. She was captured by immigration once she made it 5 miles into the U.S. After this attempt, my grandmother passed the border through a strategic method of using a friend's passport. My grandmother knew that the U.S. border officials couldn't distinguish Latinos through their stereotypic lens, so she was granted entry, even though she looked nothing like her supposed passport. Once in the U.S., my grandmother lived a life of peril, discrimination, and disillusion. After escaping many abusive households, my grandmother stabilized her wealth status by babysitting the child of a white family for below the minimum wage. One day while babysitting, the mother of the family yelled at my grandmother for not answering the phone, to which my grandmother responded with the truth, being that she did not speak English well. Immediately, the mother fired my grandmother on the account that she didn't want a Mexican who did not speak Spanish. It was at this exact moment my grandmother faced explicit racism and poverty at the same time, further creating her contempt and lack of identity with the American people. Substantially different comes the story of my friend's great-uncle Simon. After investing in a business during a racially charged era, Simon found his career being cut short due to the lack of funding. After enough was enough, Simon decided to migrate from his hometown of Montreal, Quebec, Canada, to the US in hopes of a clean slate. Since he had frequently visited his asset homes in Vermont, the venture across the Canadian border was as simple as showing his identification and obtaining citizenship soon after. Once in the US, Simon was able to attend the University of Michigan and obtain a master's in investment funding. Soon after graduating, Simon found himself working a full-time job and creating a healthy environment for his children to prosper successfully. Contrastingly different is Simon never facing discrimination. Most importantly is the fact of the matter that Simon was able to cross the border and obtain citizenship right away. This encounter of contrasting borders promotes the idea that at the end of the day, the US does not live in a post-racial society, and the rational treatment of Latinos is proof of this hypocrisy.